You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Every time we do one of these explorations into decentralized tech, it feels like the ground has completely shifted from under us.
It really has.
I mean, we used to talk about this space as, a bit of a casino, but looking at the material for today, it is so clear that the move towards serious global financial infrastructure is speeding up.
Oh, absolutely. And that's our focus today. Not really the day-to-day price swings, but those friction points where old school finance TradFi is colliding with this new world. We're tracking where the big money is going and where the regulators are scrambling to keep up.
And as we always say here, especially on Web3 Wednesdays, any big tech advance has a huge information security or governance angle. So our mission is pretty simple. We're going to pull out the key insights for you on where capital and regulation are heading so you feel totally up to speed without the information overload.
Right. We want to connect the dots. From a political veto in Europe to a clever new financial product in the US, it's all part of the same story.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's start in Europe, where things are, well, always a little complicated. The big one is MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation. It's this massive EU framework, but it's hit a very weird snag in Poland.
This is such a classic example of local politics slowing down a continental project. Poland's parliament, it failed to override a presidential veto on the bill they needed to align with MiCA.
So what does that actually mean?
It means Poland is now the only EU member without a domestic framework to implement MiCA, even while countries like Germany, Malta, the Netherlands, they're already issuing licenses.
But here's the thing that gets me. Despite all that regulatory mess, Poland's crypto market is booming. It's ranked 8th in Europe for on-chain value, up 50% year over year, with something like 8 million users. The market is just not waiting for the politicians.
Yeah, the demand is there. But Brussels sees this kind of fragmentation as a problem. You've already got Italy telling firms, comply fully with MiCA by December 30th, or you're out. And the bigger plan, the long-term thinking in Brussels, is to maybe create a single EU-level supervisor for all exchanges.
A single supervisor. That would basically make these national standoffs, like in Poland, totally irrelevant.
Exactly. If the nations can't get on the same page, the EU might just regulate from the top down.
Okay, so that's the framework debate. What about actual enforcement? Let's hop over to Canada, where their tax agency, the CRA, has been quietly very busy.
Very busy is right. They've pulled in over 100 million Canadian dollars. That's about 72 million US from crypto audits in just the last 3 years.
That is not a small number. But how much are they missing?
Well, that's the thing. The CRA itself estimates that maybe 40% of users on the platforms they're watching are non-compliant, but they really struggle to identify most of them. They know the money's moving, but tying it to a name is the hard part.
And they're getting aggressive to close that gap.
Yeah.
They use what they called a crypto data dragnet to force Dapper Labs to hand over info on thousands of users. They did the same thing to CoinSquare before that.
They're using legal force, absolutely. But here's the catch. Despite collecting all that money in back taxes and fines, they haven't successfully prosecuted a single criminal case since 2020.
So they can get your money, but they can't put you in jail for it.
It shows you how hard it is. Proving criminal intent is a whole different ballgame than a civil penalty, especially with all the cross-border issues and slow international cooperation.
Right. So while they're chasing taxes, the U.S. is still stuck trying to write the basic rules.
Yeah.
Let's move to Washington. The House passed a bill, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. Sounds promising.
It does, but then it hit the Senate, and now it's just completely stalled.
A logjam. Why? What are the sticking points?
It's a turf war, really. You have competing drafts from the Banking Committee and the Agriculture Committee, and they can't agree on the absolute fundamentals.
Like what specifically?
Okay, 3 main things. First, who's in charge? Drawing the final line between the SEC and the CFTC. Second, what even is an ancillary asset? Is a token for running a network, a security, or just a tool? And third, how do you put guardrails on DeFi and stablecoin yield, which the White House is still very nervous about?
And all of that gets complicated by the political layer, I imagine. With all the attention on President Trump's crypto holdings, the ethics of it all are front and center.
Absolutely. It complicates every single policy discussion. But while DC is stuck, the institutions are not waiting around. They're just finding other ways in, compliant ways.
Right, like the SEC approving that Bitwise 10 crypto index fund to trade on the NYSE.
Exactly. That's only the second multi-asset ETP in the U.S. It gives wealth managers a regulated package they understand. It's just like buying a gold or commodities fund for them.
And the big banks are right there with them, PNC Bank just launched direct spot Bitcoin trading for their private clients.
They're using Coinbase's tech in the background. It's a customer retention play, pure and simple. They don't want their wealthy clients moving money to a crypto-native platform.
It's powerful when a client can see their Bitcoin holdings right next to their stocks and bonds on the same statement.
It makes it feel normal, just another asset class. And they're planning to roll this out to endowments and foundations in early 2026.
This push for access is also leading to some very creative product designs. I saw this filing for an AfterDark Bitcoin ETF. What is that all about?
It's actually a brilliant little strategy. It's designed to trade a known market quirk. The fund only holds Bitcoin overnight, from 4 p.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern.
And during the day.
It rotates into treasuries. The data suggests Bitcoin tends to perform better overnight, probably because of Asian market dynamics, while the U.S. trading day can be much choppier.
That's a fascinating arbitrage of market structure. But isn't that pattern kind of fragile? What happens when the big institutions come in and that overnight advantage just disappears?
That's the billion-dollar question. That's the risk. For now, they clearly think the pattern is strong enough to build a product around. It shows you how sophisticated the market is getting.
And speaking of sophisticated, the exchanges are fighting over the biggest clients. Kraken just launched an invitation-only VIP program.
Yeah, and the barrier to entry is high. You need 10 million in your account or 80 million a year in volume.
Wow. What do you get for that?
A dedicated manager, 204/7 support, and they're offering things like access to Formula One races. It's a direct shot at Binance and others trying to steal away their high-value traders and family offices. The exchanges are becoming full-service wealth managers.
Okay, let's pivot a bit, away from market structure and more toward pure innovation. There's a vertical that's absolutely exploding: prediction markets.
Yes, and the key change here is regulatory approval. Gemini just got the green light from the CFTC to launch its own regulated prediction market, Gemini Titan. They're starting simple, with binary yes or no event contracts, but it's a huge foot in the door.
And access is getting easier too. Polymarket, which is reportedly chasing this massive $15 billion valuation, is now integrated right into the MetaMask mobile app.
Which means one-tap funding. It makes participating incredibly easy. And now that they have CFTC approval to re-enter the U.S., that's a massive market opening up.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The DeFi world is now building on top of these markets. I saw something about a protocol called Gondor.
Right. Gondor lets you borrow USDC against your poly market positions.
Explain that, because that sounds like a whole new level of financial engineering on top of what is essentially a bet.
It is. It's basically automated 2x leverage. So you buy a token that says candidate A will win. Gondor lets you borrow USDC up to 50% of the value against that token. If your bet goes south and you're about to be liquidated, the protocol doesn't just sell your token.
What does it do?
It uses the money you borrow to automatically buy the opposite token, candidate A will lose, and then it merges the two. A winning and a losing token pair always redeems for exactly $1. So you're liquidated by neutralizing your position, not through a messy market sale.
That is a remarkably clever, self-contained system. Speaking of the CFTC, they made another huge move, this one on collateral.
Monumental, really. They launched a pilot program that lets firms use Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDC as collateral in regulated U.S. derivatives markets. This is a massive vote of confidence. It treats these assets as legitimate financial tools, not just speculative tokens.
So let's talk about the core tech that powers so much of this, Ethereum. People talk about it having this irreplicable moat. What does that really mean?
It means we have to stop thinking about it like a company. Its value isn't from profits, it's from being a public good, like the internet's core protocols, TCP/IP. It's a global settlement layer. Its strategy is to be general purpose and neutral, and that's exactly what institutions want. They care more about reliability and minimizing risk than they do about raw speed.
And the value locked in that ecosystem is just enormous. If you add up ETH, all the layer 2s, the big DeFi projects, you're talking somewhere between $0.6 and $0.9 trillion. It's deeply entrenched.
And the quiet engine driving so much of that is the stable coin. The utility is just undeniable. We're talking $9 trillion in adjusted annual volume. That's in the same league as Visa and PayPal.
Which brings us back to a core theme for us on The Vocal Technologist. For true institutional adoption, you need privacy. You can't have $9 trillion of transactions broadcast on a public ledger for everyone to see.
That is the exact problem Circle is tackling with their new project, USDCX, which they launched on the Aleo testnet. This is a huge deal. It's a privacy-preserving stablecoin that uses zero-knowledge proofs.
Okay, break that down for us. Zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs. What's the simple explanation?
Think of it as a mathematical proof that lets you verify something is true without revealing the underlying data that makes it true. So a bank can prove, yes, I have the funds for this transaction and I am compliant, without ever showing the transaction history or the specific wallet addresses to the public.
Proof without revelation.
Exactly. This is aimed squarely at things like corporate payroll, foreign aid, national security payments, places where you need confidentiality, but you also absolutely need an audit trail.
That feels like the key to unlocking the next wave of use. But zooming back out, the macro picture is still in charge of the price. The Fed cut rates by 25 basis points, which everyone expected.
Right, but the cut came with very cautious language. They only penciled in one more cut for 2026, and there were a lot of dissenters. The market read that as a hawkish cut.
So the central bank is still worried about something?
They are, and that basically killed any hope for a big end-of-year rally. Bitcoin slid back toward the $90,000 mark.
But even with that uncertainty, one company just keeps going. MicroStrategy. They bought another 10,600 Bitcoin for almost $1 billion. They now own over 3% of the entire supply. Their conviction is just unshakable.
And that kind of conviction in a maturing market requires a whole new way of communicating. The old playbook of, intern meme accounts and anonymous mascots, that's over. To win now, you need founders and teams creating high-quality technical content and distributing it on serious platforms. Substance over hype.
This has been a huge tour. It feels like we're seeing these two things happen at once. On one hand, consolidation with Kraken's VIP program and PNC Bank. On the other, fragmentation with Poland's holdout and the U.S. Senate being stuck in the mud.
But the underlying tech just keeps pushing forward. The takeaway for you should be that the move fast and break things era is really over. We're in the build serious, regulated, high-stakes financial tools era now.
And what's the big debate we should be watching?
Well, people often frame it as a fight between tokenized deposits and stablecoins, but that's a false choice. Tokenized deposits are just bank credit on new rails. Stablecoins are universal settlement rails.
So if it's not a fight, what's the real innovation?
It's making the two instantly interoperable on-chain. The real unlock is when you can take cheap, regulated bank credit, the tokenized deposit, and use it to pay anyone, anywhere in the world, in seconds using the stablecoin settlement rail. That fusion is the future of money.
That's a powerful thought to end on, especially when you add in those ZK-powered stablecoins we talked about. The second you can guarantee privacy alongside compliance, all the friction just melts away. So you might want to ask yourself, how long until this new tech makes the current system of waiting 3 days for a wire to clear look like dial-up internet? Until next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.